early on that saved money because, of course, we're going to send this boy to college. So we got to have this college fund. But there came a point when I had to make a decision about whether he would ever even get to college. And so I said, hey, I better take this college money and maybe get him some help or the help that I thought he needed at that time to, ensure that he did go on to college. Well, as fate would have it, he didn't go to college, but that does not mean anything because he had the wherewithal. He had something that I didn't have and I'm being honest, Dr. Boyce, I didn't have it at 21. I fell into that, like you said, that mold of expectation. You're supposed to go to high school, graduate high school, go to college, get the degree, go get that good job, and work forever and be happy with that retirement and 401k plan. How's that working out for a lot of people right now? So I applaud these kids that have their own mind and do their own thing. And I just want to encourage other parents to encourage your children. College may not be the best pathway for them, but that does not mean that they will not be successful. So feed into them. Don't give up. Hey, if you lose a little money in the market or, you do that first fix and flip and it doesn't work out for you, don't give up. Keep going. Keep going.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And by the way, everybody, I want to let you all know who I'm speaking with. In case you don't know, I'm speaking with the one and only Dr. Sabrina Williams. She has a PhD in engineering, and also she took a pivot into estate planning, and we're going to actually get to that in a second. We come in here to talk about wealth every day, but I hope y'all understand by now. Give me a yes if you understand that you can't talk about wealth without talking about the things that surround wealth, creating the environment for wealth, creating a space where wealth can flourish. Give me a yes in the chat. I need an acknowledgement so you can understand. The goal is to teach you in a holistic framework, right? If I teach you how to grow a flower, but I don't teach you nothing about the dirt that the flower's being planted in. I don't teach you nothing about the type of nutrients you're feeding the plant. If I teach you nothing about the greenhouse, the structure that you're using, the shape of the garden, if you don't talk about those things, then you'll never learn how to grow a flower. So if you want to grow wealth, you have to create what I refer to in my book. And Dr. Sabrina, I'd like to get your thoughts on this. I refer to this in my book, and I haven't seen it written in anyone else's book, but I'm sure there's a similar concept somewhere. I just hadn't seen it. Fertile economic soil.
Mhm.
Fertile economic soil, meaning having a culture that is conducive for the building of wealth, that's conducive for the development of financial stability, that's conducive for the protection and the maintenance of a generational legacy, right? Because as you know, I know you know these things, and I definitely want you to elaborate on this. So many of our families, either the legacy is never built and the wealth is not created, the potential's lost, or it gets built and then it's gone the next generation,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
The kids, grandkids don't know nothing about how hard somebody worked in the 1950s to go get a bunch of land and get a bunch of money because it's all in the hands of somebody else now. And so, can you kind of speak to this in terms of what led you into this? Because engineering, even though
Wow.
I can understand why an engineer would be really good in financial spaces,
Mhm.
engineering is kind of on the other side of town from estate planning. So how did that happen for you?
So thank you for asking that question because I do, before I address that, I do want to go back and share something with your audience as well. As I mentioned, I attended your seminar in Houston, and at the time you had just released your book, The 10 Commandments of Black Economic Power. I read this book while we were driving to Houston. I read it out loud to my family because I wanted them to hear your words. And I was so impressed by the things that you were saying in this book. Um, I bought
Thank you.
several copies of your book there in Houston, and
Wow.
then I went online and ordered several copies of your book because I thought it was very important for those in my circle to also read, hear, and understand the things that you were saying to our community. And you started off in the book talking about the family and being an asset to the family. It made me think about something that my aunt, who's probably listening to this interview right now, so shout out to Aunt Sue.
Do you
But
know
I
do you know
remember,
somebody named Sharon Day?
I do, I
Is that
do.
that's not your aunt though? That's
No, that's
okay.
not
Okay.
my aunt.
She's in
That's
the
my
chat.
friend.
Go ahead. Shout out
But
to
my
Miss Sharon,
I
please.
remember my Aunt Sue is an educator, and I remember when I was having problems with Tyler, reaching out to her, and she said to me, she said a lot of people think that their asset is their home, their car, and all of these things that they have, but their children, my children are my greatest asset. And I go back to your book, and you talk about in your opening how we should be assets to the family. We should be assets to the family. And so when we talk about planting seeds in fertile ground, so that they could sprout. I feel like I am seeing the results of that in my child because of the soil that we have tried to sow before him. So I started out, of course, as you said, as an engineer. I've worked professionally as a college professor. I've worked in manufacturing. I've worked as a consultant. I've worked for in the public sector for the government. So thankful that I'm not there now. Uh, I digress. I won't go there. But in my heart of hearts was always an entrepreneur. I always knew that. And when I go back and I look at my history, it was in my DNA. My grandparents were entrepreneurs. My uncles, my mother, my father, I had that in me. And so for a long time, Dr. Boyce, there was an internal battle that I was fighting. There was that side of me that wanted to do the expected. You've gone to school, you've gotten a doctorate degree, you're supposed to do these things. But the other side of that is my heart was saying, I really want to do something else. And so in 2017, I decided, hey, I'm going to walk away from the government. I'm going to focus on my platform, online education. So I did that for a while, but it was 2020 during the pandemic when I had my shift into estate planning. So as an investor, a lot of times we come across these great deals. And those great deals are as a result of someone else's struggle. Someone else has made a decision not to pay their property taxes. So you could pick up a property real inexpensive at the tax sale. But in 2020, I started thinking about all of the people that look like you and I that were leaving this world. And I started to wonder how many of those people had anything in order, had a written plan, had left any direction for their family about how their estates should be handled. And honestly, it was at that moment that I thought about my own life, Dr. Boyce. Like, okay, here you are, you're out here, you're doing this, you're doing that. Maybe it's time for you to settle down and get your things in order. And I would like to sit here and tell your audience that I made that decision at that moment to do that, but that's not what happened. So 2021, 2020 passed, 2021, I found myself in a sticky, I feel like that sticky situation. It was a situation that could have ended very drastically. It was a legal situation. And, I'm here thinking back to 2020, and I'm like, okay, I was thinking about this then. I should have done some things, but in 2023, I made the decision it's time to settle down. I walked away from everything and I decided to engross myself in estate planning. So my journey there came out of necessity at that point because I was trying to figure out how to save myself, save my assets and everything that I had worked for. So some people approach estate planning because they are literally looking for ways and information on transferring their wealth after they pass on. Dr. Williams didn't get to estate planning that way. I got to estate planning because I was literally trying to save and protect my estate.
Mm, wow.
Yeah, that's
Wow.
my story.
Wow. So sort of being called to battle in that situation is what really made you sensitive to this issue, which is an important issue.
Yes,
It's one of these things where when you talk about estate planning and everything else, you're right. I mean, you go back to the pandemic. The pandemic was really huge for so many reasons. I mean, it became political, very political, too political, I think, and stressful, I think, for a lot of people.
Mhm.
I in my own family, just having relatives fighting over, getting the shot or not getting the shot. I had strong feelings on both sides, people I loved on both sides. Um, and so there was that part of it. And then because both sides had, in my opinion, some type of validity to support their position, right? And because people really were dying, and we were dying the most,
Mhm.
and people were using the fact that we were dying the most to, support a certain agenda, whatever their agenda was. And I think at that time, I think what drove me crazy about that time was, one, I felt that they were kind of using black people as a pawn to get us to, just like, because to me, honestly, if you tell me that, okay, black people are more likely to have these things happen because they're unhealthy, they have obesity, diabetes, things like that, then where were all the preventative measures that could have been put in place even before that to
Right.
minimize that? You didn't care before, but suddenly you now care because you got this money you're going to make by getting me this shot and all these other things. And that to me was a huge economic conversation in terms of how economics can be like a boogeyman to make it hard to trust people. Like, okay, are you doing this because you care? Are you doing this because of the money? But then on top of that, you had real death, and then and when real death happens, we know a large percentage of people are not prepared, and it's and death is such a shocker because I thought about this when my mother died on Christmas Eve. I was like, this is so strange. I don't feel like I feel like my mother should not be dead. Like that's like that kid, that's not possible. And then you think about yourself, you're like, well, I'm here. Like, what do you mean I'm gone? Like I can't be gone. Like I'm here. But you're gonna be gone. We're all gonna be
Right.
gone to
Right.
somewhere else. We don't know where that is exactly, but
Right.
we're gonna be gone. And so there's so much we have going on, so many balls we're juggling, and then suddenly the Grim Reaper comes along and takes us away, and all those balls hit the ground. Or we're
Mhm.
juggling eggs. Some of us are juggling eggs. And
Mhm.
so the Grim Reaper comes along and swipes you. Doesn't care how many eggs you're juggling, what the plan is. Like, oh, eventually I'm going to make sure these eggs are safe and secure. No, the Grim Reaper comes and snatches you away. All those eggs hit the ground and splat. And then next thing you know, um, you got these big problems and little problems, right? Little problems like, like, okay, now we don't know, we can't get the password to get into the bank account
Mhm.
because, or whatever it is, because you're the only person to get into the whatever. When Kevin Samuels died, I remember noticing like he had that YouTube channel, and I said,
Yeah.
his YouTube channel probably makes $500,000 a
Yeah.
year, but I bet nobody has a password but him.
Nobody has it. Yeah.
Right. And,
Yeah.
so I was like, well, I wonder what the policy is because that channel sat there
Mhm.
dormant for a long
Mhm.
time. And then the bigger issues of wealth just being transferred. What do you think it is that makes people so unwilling to just sort of sit down, have a little conversation, lay out a plan? Okay, let's do it's almost like it could be done as a game. Like, let's play a game. Let's imagine I'm not here
Mhm.
and let's just go through every single important issue that we can think of that would have to be addressed without me even, because a lot of times it's like, okay, well, let me call mama real quick and get the number. Let me ask daddy real fast where the such and such is located, because parents be having secrets and
Right.
I keep the such and such in the closet underneath the couch and all that. Well, what if they weren't here? And then just documenting that. And what do you think is stopping people? What do you think is the issue?
Well, you asked me what I think, and I'm going to tell you what I think. I think it's M&Ms. Not the kind that melt in your mouth, not in your hand. It's money and mortality. Those are the two M's that our community tends to have problems discussing. We don't want to face the fact that one day we may not be here. That's a hard discussion to have. And then again, full transparency, Dr. Boyce, even during my journey of estate planning, and afterwards I went on to write the book, Learning to Trust. I had to face my own mortality. I had to face the fact that I may not be here. I've experienced death of loved ones before as a newlywed at 25, my husband 23. We were faced after 6 months with his father's death. We had just gotten to school, just enrolled in classes. We were waiting for classes to start, and we got a phone call that my father in law had passed. Well,
Wow.
here we are. We didn't know what to do because we're thinking about school. We weren't thinking about death and dying. But we were forced at that point to step up to the plate and handle things. I mean, we had no idea what to do, where to start, but we had to do that. And so I say that, and I think about where I am in the space that I am in now. This is a mission for me to really educate our people on doing just what you said, having those conversations. They're not pleasant, but the reality is, all of us say that we love our family. We want the best for our family. Well, if you want the best, why would you leave them in a situation where they can't even get to the money in the bank account to bury you? Why would you leave them in a situation where they're fighting over, who gets grandpa's new old suit that are his favorite hat, or who gets the family Bible, or who gets the car? Why would you want that for your family? And so we have got to really revisit what this word love means. Love is an action. It's an action. You show love by what you
Mm.
do and how you treat your family and your loved ones. And to be honest, Dr. Boyd, we have some really interesting situationships within the Black community. Everybody's not married. Only about 29% of us are married. So when you have these situationships and you die, a lot of times, that creates hardships. I've been through it in my family where people are just waiting for folks to die so they can tell you, get out of my mama's house. I didn't want you in my daddy's car anyway. So there are conversations as a community that we have got to start having. And that's why when I found myself in this space, I immediately recognized that somebody had to step up. And I'm not talking about the traditional conversations that you're going to have when you go see the estate planner. I'm talking about the type of conversations that Dr. Boyce has with Black America. There are some things that we have to just say to each other, because we know death brings out the worst in our families a lot of times. I've been in situations where people have almost gone to blows, at the funeral, making the funeral plans. I mean, that's our reality, but we've got to move beyond that. We've got to
Yeah.
move beyond that.
Oof. I mean, when you talk about love being in action and not just a word, I think that really kind of hits hard because a lot of us are used to love kind of being an emotion.
Mm-hmm.
Like I can say I love you, but I don't have to actually do anything to prove it. Or maybe if I want to show love, maybe I show it by, maybe I show love to my wife by sleeping with her, or I show love to a friend by feeding them or something simple like that, but which is all good, or even talking to a person, But I think you're right when you talk about love is deeper. Like, for example, if I love my kids, my mother used to say something real weird. I don't even know if this was normal. My mother used to say, I love y'all so much that I'm willing to let y'all hate me if that means that you're going to be successful in life, right? And that's a hard love to
Mm-hmm.
because a lot of people aren't willing to do that. And I don't even know if she had to go that far. But because a lot of people they think they're showing love for another person when really you're kind of showing love for yourself, right? Like I love my kids, but I need my kids to like me and like everything that I say. So I'm gonna be best friends with my kids instead of disciplining them and preparing them for life, right? So really, you're not showing love to your kids, you're showing love to yourself because you need that validation or whatever it is, right? Like that idea of not being loved by or your children being mad at you is so devastating that you'll ruin them to avoid that from happening, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that requires so maybe you love them but you don't care about them. Like I think loving someone is different from caring about. Like I can love a car, but I don't care about my car. I can
Mm-hmm.
because if it crashes, I can just get a new one. So I think that we got to think about that. Like okay, do I love you or do I care about you? And with my family, I want to care about them, and caring about them means okay, I got to make myself a little uncomfortable and have some uncomfortable conversations, do some stuff I don't really want to do, right? You know,
Mhm.
it's that discipline, right? So maybe love also requires discipline, or caring for someone requires discipline. So you mentioned situationships. I thought that was really funny. Um, there's someone I knew. I told this story in class about probably a year ago, but I gotta tell it again because it was funny. It was funny, but it ain't funny, like
Mhm.
that. So there was this guy. He was in his 50s, and he's like the rest of us men in our 50s. We still think we in our 20s, like in our head, until you try to go on the basketball court and your ankles don't work no more, stuff like that. And he had a little young girlfriend, about 30 years old. And now the girlfriend was about the same age as his daughter, right? So it was kind of one of those weird situations, right?
Yeah.
But he's an old player. He had some money in his pocket. So, when you got money, you get a lot of options, and he took good care of her, paid for everything, whatever. She lived with him. And and so, but the daughter hated this girl, right? The daughter's like, "Why are you dating this girl? She's the same age as me." So so this is not funny, but this is what happened. Was it Father Time is undefeated. So Father Time shows up and
Mhm.
gives him a stroke. It says, "Guess what? You thought you were 24, but you're actually 54. Here's a stroke. Here's a reward for all that high blood pressure you've been holding in, thinking that you don't have to go to the doctor." So he goes into a coma. And during that time, his girlfriend's panicking because his mother lived with him too. And they're like, "Well, how are we gonna pay the bills? He has all the money in his bank account. He's the one that makes all the money decisions, and we don't know what to do." So they took the phone and I guess put it on his face and broke in his bank account and took the money out because he would have gave him the money anyway. But he's in a coma. So so they use all this money to pay the bills, and then he dies. Well, once someone dies, then the state steps in, right? So
Right.
he had no trust, no will, no nothing, no death plan, because he was going to live forever, and because he's only 24 in his head, right? Because we all
Mhm.
think we're 24, and so the daughter gets everything because that's the daughter.
Right.
There's no provision anywhere in the state law that says that the girlfriend is supposed to,
Right.
because you're the girlfriend, you're not the wife. So the daughter immediately evicts the girlfriend from the house. Like, get
Mhm.
out of here. You ain't get, I don't care. You ain't gotta, you ain't gotta go home, but you got to get the hell up out of
Get
here.
out of here.
So, and,
Mhm.
and then the daughter does a forensic accounting. Like, well, where did this $50,000 go? And finds out this girl broke in the account, took the money, and then she files charges.
Mhm.
And the thing is that her father probably would not agree to any of this if he was here,
Right.
but he ain't here. And so to me, I think that those are and the problems. I bet this has happened like thousands of times.
Thousands of times, thousands of times. And I even have a family that I'm working with right now who recently lost the matriarch of their family. She was, I believe she made it to in either 90 or 92. But just a few months ago, I guess she realized that her time on earth was not long. So she had a conversation with a granddaughter and she wanted this granddaughter to have her house. Well, unfortunately, she passed before any paperwork was done to transfer the house to the granddaughter. Well, lo and behold, after she dies, one of the sons goes to the granddaughter and says, "Well, if you want the house, you have to buy it from us. You have to pay so much money, and you got to have the money by like next Friday." Okay. Well, here's the funny thing about this story, Dr. Boyce. Now that grandma is gone, her house becomes heir's property. She's no longer here, it becomes heir's property. The granddaughter's father would have been a direct heir from the grandmother, but the father is deceased, which means the granddaughter now becomes the heir to her father's part. So here you have an uncle who's trying to sell the granddaughter what she already owns. So this is
That-
what I'm telling us, people, black
wow.
people. We have got to educate ourselves. And if we want things done, we have to make these intentions known, but we also got to put some things in writing. Just talking about it is not enough. We do enough talking as a people. You've got to put some things in writing. If you go to court, the judge is not going to ask you about that conversation you had way back when. The
Mm.
judge is going to want to see, what do you have in writing? Where's grandma's will? Where's grandma's estate plan? Where's grandma's trust? Okay, you don't have one? Well, guess what? Everybody gets an equal share of grandma's house.
Wow. Well, I'll tell you what. I think this stuff should be taught to kids.
Yeah.
I think that because I think there's something about it where maybe because we're not used to this just coming up, the legal side of everything, and
Mhm.
the fact that it's not what you know, it's what you can actually prove. It just becomes kind of strange. No, well, no, everybody knows that
Mhm.
grandma wanted me to have the house. She said that. It doesn't matter. You have to have some documentation, and that requires the discipline to go get the paper filed or to go and get the contract signed, and sometimes we don't want to do that, and I can confess, like, there have been times where I haven't done that,
Mhm.
and I paid a
Right.
huge price for that. So get that paperwork, everybody. Okay, so Dr. Sabrina, so you're going to be a guest in our estate planning club. And anybody who's not a member, you can go to drboycelift.com, and you can join us. LIFT stands for Legacy Investors for Tomorrow, by the way. So that's our estate planning club. So go to drboycelift.com. So, Dr. Sabrina, tomorrow night at 8 p.m., you're going to kind of break down exactly what.
So we're excited to be sharing our experience on the estate planning process and some of the lessons that we learned. So everything from, what's the best, everybody wants to know when's the best time, to start this estate planning journey. I work with a lot of younger people, Dr. Boyd. So, we work with them and try to get them on board with the best time. We've talked about that today. Time is not promised. So we're going to be talking about the best time. Somebody, always inevitably wants to know what's the best tool to use. Well, the answer to that question is always it depends. Everybody's situation is different. My situation is not your situation. Your situation is not my situation. So we're going to be talking about the tools, and this is based on my experience and the lessons that I learned when I was learning to trust over that 1 year period. We're also going to talk about who to work with, because believe it or not, there are a lot of schemes and scams out there, and I ran into a few of them. I will be honest and tell you I did. So I would love to share with you my lessons that I learned about how to really evaluate, what may be a real opportunity or a fake opportunity when it comes to setting up, the trust and working with people. So we're going to share just some nuggets from experience, life lessons that were learned, some the hard way, unfortunately.
Well, you know what? That's important stuff, and I'm appreciative that you have been able to come in and join us today. And anybody who wants to talk to Dr. Sabrina directly in a smaller group setting where she can answer all of your questions and things like that, we're going to meet tomorrow night at 8 o'clock for our Legacy Investors group. You can go to drboycelift.com. The LIFT stands for Legacy Investors for Tomorrow. And we meet once a month and we cover things like that. There's a whole curriculum on estate planning and putting things together for your whole family in terms of trusts and wills and things like that. Preparing, picking your trustees and things. I saw your question, AJ, about that, and that is an important question. So, with that said, I want to say thank you very much, Dr. Sabrina. It was great to see you again.
Thank you. And before I leave, I have to do something, Dr. Boyce, or otherwise I will get in big trouble. Today is my son Kyle's 22nd birthday. He's still in Houston, so I'd like to just kind of do a shout out. I hope he's listening to Kyle on his 22nd birthday today. Happy birthday. Mama loves you to the moon and back. And I also have to send a shout out to my sweetie, who will also be having a birthday on tomorrow. He will not be celebrating his 22nd birthday. My husband.
Well,
I'm not gonna tell your age, but he'll be celebrating tomorrow. So thank you for allowing me to recognize my family. Um, we appreciate and we love you. Those are two of my biggest supporters, so I have to recognize them.
yeah, yeah. Well, happy birthday, Kyle, and happy birthday to your sweetie. And also, I saw it seemed like Brenda said her birthday is tomorrow too. So happy birthday, Brenda, and also happy Valentine's Day to everybody. And the name of Dr. Williams's book is "Learning to Trust: The Black Family's Guide to Building, Protecting, and Transferring Wealth." And also, her radio show is called SCW Talks Money and More. It airs on WMPR 90.1 FM. So tomorrow night we're going to be meeting again. And also, speaking of that, Valentine's Day is coming up, and don't forget, Dr. Alicia is having the Black Love Weekend. And so, if you want to speak with directly with therapists that can help you to seek the right relationships, maintain your relationships, have healthy relationships. She's got a whole bunch of therapists coming in. They're going to do science research based methods for repairing relationships, building strong relationships. So we know relationships are linked to wealth. Some of you, maybe you're estranged from your kids. They can help you with that. Maybe you are looking for the right partner. They can help you with that. Maybe you're having trouble in your relationship, marriage, situationship. They can help you with that. So feel free to go to theblackloveweekend.com, theblackloveweekend.com. So everybody have a good day. God bless you. And thank you again, Dr. Sabrina. And
Thank you for
we will
having
see
me.
you.